2 a.m. and she calls me 'cause I'm still awake. Can you help me unravel my latest mistake? Dropped a stitch about 17 rows behind me. There's no way I can pick it up from where I am. This is so frustrating.
Hello, and welcome to the 11th episode of the Sittin and Knittin podcast. I am your host, Dianna. You can find me on Ravelry as His Handmaid. I'm also on Twitter and on Plurk and Instagram. Show notes can be found at the blog at sittinandknittinpodcast.blogspot.com. So I wanted to say, first of all, welcome back to all of my returning viewers. Thank you so much for hanging around and sticking with me and waiting for another episode to come. And again, my apologies for the delay. I would like to say welcome to any new visitors to the podcast. I hope you enjoy the podcast. Maybe go back and view some of the other episodes to get to know us a little better. And thank you for giving us a shot. I understand I watch and try a lot of podcasts, and I understand that this one may not be a fit for you, but thank you for taking your time to spend with me. A little housekeeping. First of all, I am trying something new. Today, I've been broadcasting from different places. This is my living room, and the past few episodes I've been in the kitchen, but I'm back here in the living room now. Just that's how it worked out for us. And I noticed that the sound was not the greatest. I usually do not listen back to my podcasts or watch them. If there's any editing that needs to be done, I very quickly and do it the minimum amount that I can, because I really don't like to sit and watch myself. So, but I did notice since I didn't have show notes, I couldn't remember what I talked to you all about last, so I had to go back to episode 10 and listen. And I noticed that the sound wasn't very great. So I'm going to use this headset and microphone that I usually use for video chat, Skyping, or Google Chat. And I think it did sound a little better. And please give me some feedback and let me know how that sounds. I'd also like to apologize. When I was listening to the last episode, which was uploaded December 7th, 2012, it sounded really, really sad. And I think what it was I was trying to be quiet because it was early in the morning and I was on my way to work and the rest of the family was supposed to be sleeping. I think a little one did walk in during that, but still I sounded kind of drab. And if you were a first-time viewer watching at that time, I don't know if I would have came back, and if you were a returning viewer, I would have wondered what was wrong with me. So I would like to apologize for that. Also, I didn't know where to put this, so I'll just talk about it at the beginning. I am hoping to travel a little bit this year. I didn't get a chance to get in on the Knit Girls Super Summer Knit Away. I didn't even put myself in the lottery because I didn't think it would work with my schedule, but I do hope to be able to go down there and shop. But the things that I know that I do want to do is the Knitting Pipeline Retreat, which is April 26th and 27th, 2013, and it's in Illinois, and I cannot think of the city. I know it's about 4 or 5 hours from me, and I plan to go there. I'll be driving from Ohio, so if anybody is from the Ohio area, Southwest Ohio area, and you're going that way too, maybe we can carpool. But that is something that I am planning on doing. I'm also planning to take a trip in the first week of April to the San Diego area of California. I'm going to be visiting my brother for a couple of days, and I will be visiting with my good friend Nicole. So if you are in the San Diego area and you are a knitter or you watch the podcast or on Ravelry or whatever and you want to meet up, I will be in that area. I don't know a lot about the area. I'll be counting on my brother, and I'll also be counting on Nicole. She's also known as Hot As Knitter on Ravelry. So, and I'll be seeing Knitting's My Bag, hopefully taking advantage of her hospitality. So I'm looking forward to that. Also, I hope to be able to go in June 20th to 23rd. I'm planning to go to Minnesota for the Stockinette Zombies retreat. That's still kind of up in the air for me. I'm not positively sure, but that's another place that I'm hoping to travel. And I really wanted to get to the Knittin in the Mitten, but the time that it is not a good time for me to get away with work and school, so I didn't even put myself in that lottery either. But so the things that I know about for sure right now is the beginning of April trip to California and also the Knitting Pipeline retreat. So that's some traveling plans I want to share with you. I have a lot to talk about. I hope to make it short. I also want to say that we will be missing a couple segments today. Justice's Court and Journey's Journey. Justice and Journey have not been doing much knitting lately, and so they haven't been doing any knitting, and so they don't have anything to show, and so they have chosen not to podcast or participate at this time. So I know a lot of you are fans, and we will not have those segments today, so I wanted to let you know that. Also, I'm not sure about the ASL Minute. I'm kind of wondering what direction to continue to take with that, or if I still will have an ASL Minute. If there is some American Sign Language vocabulary that you would like for me to share with you or demonstrate on the podcast, let me know. Or if that's a segment that we just want to let fade away, it won't hurt my feelings either if you'd rather not. So today I really couldn't think of a sign that would be kind of fiber related, or I was trying to go with the theme of something that you would say if you met a deaf or hard of hearing person at a fiber event, and just introductions and things like that. But I'm not sure where else to continue to go. So just let me know if that's something that you would like me to continue with. You can email me. My email address is knittingmother@gmail.com, or you can send me a private message on Ravelry, or you can leave a comment on the blog. So let's get started with the show. In my hands. I'm going to start with in my hands. It's been a while since I podcasted, but so I don't remember if I usually start with the finished objects or the works in progress. But I'm going to go ahead and start with the works in progress, because a lot of the finished objects I'm going to be talking about because they're not here. They have been given away as gifts, and I've already spent a lot of time talking, and I want to get right into the knitting. So I'm going to go ahead and start with, I am doing a test knit for Jules. Her name is Juliana. She is Jules Lunder on Ravelry, and she is also the host of the Equal Opportunity Crafter podcast. I spoke about this podcast a couple of episodes of mine ago, maybe in episode 9 or 8. And I think I called it the Equal Opportunity Knitter. And I apologize for that, Juliana, but it is called the Equal Opportunity Crafter Podcast. And this is a pullover. She's named it Somiar. And it is a pullover. It is knit from the bottom up. You first knit the sleeves, and then you knit the body of the sweater, and then you attach the sleeves. It is a V-neck cardigan with a wide garter collar. Not a cardigan, excuse me. It's a pullover. It has a what she calls a dash pattern. Someone else said it could be called a butterfly pattern. So anyway, without further ado, um, Juliana asked for test knitters on her podcast, and I told her, I private messaged her and told her that I did want to test knit, and then she earburned me. Well, let me show you the project first. So here it is. Let's see. I have attached the sleeves, and I am working in the round now, doing the V-neck. I am knitting this out of Knit Picks Wool of the Andes, and their worsted weight, and the color is blue ink, and I am knitting it on size, can you see I'm knitting it on size 7, US 7, and I'm not sure the millimeter, US 7 needles, and I did the ribbing in US 5 needles. A couple of things about this project. One, I have never knit an adult sweater before. I have knit many children's sweaters and baby sweaters, but never knit an adult sweater. In the process of knitting children's sweaters, I know I enjoy top-down sweaters. When I signed on for this project, I did not realize, I don't think, that it was a bottom-up until after I got the project. And once she emailed it to me, once I told her yes, I would test, and once she emailed it to me, I felt obligated to go ahead and knit it anyway, even though it may not have been my preference, because just because I feel like it crossed the line once I got the email. I didn't want to tell her yes and get the email and say no, look at it and say no. I just didn't think that was fair. So plus I was just really infatuated with Juliana. I think she the spirit that I get from her through her podcast, she just seems like a really great lady, and I love the designs of hers that I've seen so far. So I was really excited to do this for her. It has been a bit of a challenge for me. I think I had committed to it probably the second week of December, and she wanted it done by the end of January. So that's 6 weeks. I don't know what I was thinking with my schedule and everything else, how I could do it, but it at the same time, this is the crunch that I needed, because if I didn't have a time limit, this project would probably be languishing like my calligraphy cardigan, which I have shown on previous podcasts, and it is hibernating, but I do plan on getting it out and working on it after I finish this. I've been encouraged to see Leslie, You Don't Call Me Les, from the Knit Girls, her progress on her calligraphy, but I digress. So this project, I guess what I find difficult about it is not really the bottom up, but I think because I'm so busy and I have so many things going on, it's a 7 round repeat. In the dash pattern is only on 2 rounds, but sometimes I would find myself knitting and forget, oh, I'm supposed to be on a pattern round, and I think I did almost as much unknitting as I did knitting. So that was just me. There's some glitches in the pattern that we have seen to work out, but that's all part of test knitting. I have one of the reasons that I've been a member of the test knitters group for a while. I have test knitted one other pattern, and it was a child's sweater, a child's cardigan, and I think that was before I started podcasting. And after doing this, I don't think I want to test knit anymore. I think it's a great pattern. I think Juliana is a great designer, but the reason why that I was a part of the test knitters group was because I wanted to be able to have access to nice patterns for free. But that comes freedom comes with a cost. And the cost of going through and crunching numbers and looking at the way the instructions are set up and just different things like that is just too much for me. It's almost like designing the sweater yourself, at least as far as I'm concerned. So I probably will not test knit anymore. I will probably just, I mean, what's $5 or $6 for a pattern? I will probably just buy it. But that was what I had in mind when I joined the test knitters was, a lot of nice patterns that I could test knit for free because it's the first time using it. But I heard another podcaster, I think it was Hot Ass Knitter from Positively Knitting, saying, and someone else, that they feel more confident if they're knitting a sweater where there's several, like 100 or more done, because then you know if there's any errata or mistakes or anything that's already been worked out. And so when you get to it, it'll be easier for you to read others' notes and things like that. So it's been a challenge to me, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But I have about 11 days or less, maybe 8 days to get this finished. And I'm hoping that I can get it finished. Now, here's my problem. This yarn I bought about 4 years ago, and I got about 13 balls at 110 yards per ball or per skein. So that is about, I guess, 1,400. Just thinking real quick, it's about 1,400 yards or more. I believe for my size, I'm knitting the size 42, which is a couple of, and it's supposed to have 4 to 5 inches of positive ease. And my bust is a 40, so I'm knitting the 42, and with the positive ease, I would be wearing it over something, so I wanted it a little bigger. But I think for my size, she said we only needed 1,300 yards. I think I'm going to run out of yarn. I am just right here on the sweater, so I have all of this to do and a pretty hefty collar. I don't think Juliana would mind if I get the pattern and just show you what it looks like. So just hold on just a second and I'll get that. So here it is. I'm not breaking any, I don't think, copyright laws because she does have this on her project page, and she's Jules Lunder on Ravelry. But this is the sweater, and it has a pretty hefty collar, and I only have 2.5 balls left. Well, yeah, about 2.5 balls, which is another 260 yards or so. And I'm just not sure if that's going to be enough. I'm horrible at estimating yarn and how much yarn I am going, to need to finish up something. I have contacted Knit Picks, and this yarn is discontinued, and they have no recommendations of a color that would be the same. Or even close to the same. I have looked on Ravelry, and for the blue ink, there is none in the will sell or trade tag. I have contacted a few people in Ravelry. I've sent them a private message that had it in their stash, not for sale. But they had like just 1 or 2 balls, or one person I contacted, it was left over from something, a couple people. I think I sent out maybe 4 or 5 private messages. So I'm hoping to get an answer back asking them if they would please reconsider, because sometimes you put things in your stash and then you have it tagged that way, and then you may change your mind. So I'm hoping they reconsider. If they don't, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I'm thinking I have enough to get to the collar, but for 4 inches of garter stitch collar on about 68 stitches, I just don't think I'm going to have enough. I do have some lamb's pride that I was thinking about doing for the collar, and this is the blue ink, and the lamb's pride is considerably darker. So I had thought that would work until I went upstairs today and got it, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I have no idea what I'm going to do. Um, I put a lot of hard work in this sweater, and I just don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do if I run out of yarn. So I'm hoping that someone will have mercy and come through. And I don't even know how much to ask for. I've asked for 2 skeins, the people that I've contacted. So I probably will not have it finished by January 31st, which is the deadline, but I will have all of the knitting done that she needs done for the pattern testing. As far as getting a final picture by then, I won't have it, but I'm sure she will work with me, because if somebody does send it to me, it will probably take until the end of the week. So that is the first thing that is on my needles. Let me get the next. Next on my needles, I am doing the Wavico Cowl and Hat by Amanda Bell. And this pattern was given to me by Ann MCG on Ravelry. She saw it on my wish list, and she kindly gave it to me as a gift. I think it was just a random act, and thank you so much, Ann, for that. And I am knitting this cowl I wanted to knit the cowl anyway, but I'm knitting it as part of a knit along on the Equal Opportunity Crafter podcast group. Again, Juliana. And she's having a knit along from Ides to Ides, where it's from the Ides of January to the Ides of March, which is like the middle of the month, the middle of January to the middle of March. So it started January 13th. So I knew I wanted to at least, she said we didn't have to cast on the Ides of January, but I kind of like the Ides to Ides. So I cast it on January 13th. And that was all I did. I just committed to cast on. So here is my cast on. Nothing fancy, just a regular cast on. I casted on size, I think these are size 10 needles. The pattern calls for size 10 and size 11 needles, but the ribbing is done on size 10. I am using Knit Picks Cadena in the cold colorway, and I am so excited about this yarn. I did not look at the yarn. I feel like I'm too far from the camera. I hope you can see it. Just the stitch definition, it's really soft, and it has a beautiful, it just looks beautiful. I mean, it's black, but the way that it is spun, or the way that it's plied, I guess, the loftiness of it, the color of it, it seems like it's going to yield a beautiful stitch definition. I was so excited when I opened this. I did not expect it to look like this. And then when I went on Ravelry and looked at some of the samples and projects done with it, I just got really, really excited about it. So I am really excited about it. All I have done so far is cast on, but I will count it as a work in progress. I have been working almost exclusively since I cast it on December 27th, exclusively on the Sommiar pullover. And I hope I didn't sound negative about it. I'm really excited to be test knitting for Juliana and just test knitting the pullover, and I'm really excited for the finished project. I just know for me, it doesn't have anything to do with the designer. I probably won't test knit anymore. But so that's another work in progress. Another work in progress, and I think I talked to you last time, and I want to try to remember one thing that I see other podcasters do is kind of talk like they're continuing on from last time, which they are, but I want to try to keep in mind that there may be new viewers that was not here last time. So I did go ahead and cast on. I had talked about doing just some plain stockinette self-striping socks. my hitchhiker was my first time using self-striping yarn. And though I love the hitchhiker, now I'm wondering, now that I'm so in love with knitting self-striping socks, I'm wondering, why did I waste that self-striping yarn on the shawl? But anyway, this is Hiawassee Creek Dye Works yarn, and I don't think I have the tag anymore, but it's the Willy Wonka colorway, and it's purples. It looks blue there. It's not blue at all. It's almost like, I can't believe how it's coming out. It's almost like a lavender, purple, and brown. And if you know me for any time, it's darker than lavender, but it's not a deep purple. I love purple. And so this is, my first stripy sock, and I'm doing it top down, and I just cast on, I believe, 56 stitches, and I used the twisted German cast on, which is a variation of the slingshot cast on or long tail cast on. And that is the cast on I use for almost everything. So, and it is a stretchy, really stretchy cast on. So I cast on 56 stitches, and I'm doing my first afterthought heel. So I knit I did all the math before, and it's been so long since I've done it. I knit until I was ready to put my heel in. And I put my heel in, and I'm knitting on the foot, and I believe I need 6 stripes for the foot, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm starting my 5th. I believe I have 6 stripes before I start the toe decreases. I am really, this is, it's in my purse now, so it's my purse knitting, but I almost lug around the sweater everywhere, and so I don't really knit on it a lot. So I can't, I'd have to look at my Ravelry page to see when I started on this, but this is only like a week or two's worth of knitting. I stopped working on this and have hardly worked on it for the past 3 weeks, but it's really addicting. I am doing it on US 1, which is 2.25 millimeter needles, and I have run into some trouble. And I meant to bring my other socks to show you, but I have been getting a lot of ladders, and I've been frustrated with the ladders that I get. I will show you more about ladders later, but I think I talked a little bit about ladders on my fingerless mitts, but I don't know if you can see those ladders. If I knit with a heavier yarn, I usually don't get ladders, but I've been getting ladders here. And I've gotten ladders, here's another, they're on each side. And it was really frustrating to me. I read somewhere that if you have ladders, if you're using a wool yarn, once you wash it and block it, they'll fill out. I'm not sure that's true, because of another project that I had that I'll share with you. But I don't know what it is. At first I was using a Hiya Sharp needle. I believe it was a 32-inch needle. And I looked I think I put a question out on Plurk, and I looked on YouTube videos, and what I finally figured out was, well, one of the suggestions for preventing ladders was that, and I was doing magic loop, and this isn't magic loop, and I don't know if you can see it. But when you have your new needle and you're getting ready to work into the first stitch, make sure that your needle is on top of the old old needle, or your working needle is on top of your resting needle, or your resting cable, I should say. And so they say if you work like that, because usually when I would work, I would come in underneath it like this, but really, and it works the same with magic loop, if you come in like this, they say that helps prevent ladders. So I did that for a little bit, and it seemed to work okay, but I finally, as you can see, I went back to two circs. Two circs seem to help with the ladders for me. I don't know what it is about two circs, but it's almost like magic loop knitting, but with the two circs, I don't have the ladder trouble that I was having before. The only reason why I didn't do two circs in the beginning was, number one, I wanted to use my higher sharps, and I didn't have them in the 24. Yeah, I don't have them in the 24-inch length. And two circs on 24 inches is really long and fiddly. I would prefer 20-inch length circs. 16 is too small, and 24 is too long. Another thing about two circs is if I'm not paying attention, it'll end up on one circ, but that's here nor there. So I am using my ChowGoo lace needle, and I'm also using an Addi Turbo lace. And if you will look at them, to me, the ChowGoo, which is this one, looks a little thicker than the Addi, which is this one. But I put them both through the needle gauge thingy, and it said that they were both 2.25, and I had them filed both as 2.25, but so that's what I'm working with. I wanted to kind of talk with you about ladders a little bit. If anybody has any suggestions that would help me with my ladders, I would really appreciate it. One more thing about ladders, I'll be right back. Okay, I wanted to talk. I'm back. You didn't notice I was gone, but I did have to go and dig through my laundry basket, clean laundry, to get some examples for you. I wanted to show you another sock. I can't remember when I finished it, but it's on my project page, and I knit it from Unwind Yarn Company's sock yarn, and it's just a plain stockinette sock. But when I was getting ladders, okay, you can see it there, I started pulling. Everyone says pull that first or second stitch tight. And so I think I started this one from the toe up, I think. But anyway, you can see the ridge and that comes from pulling the stitch tight. And yes, I started it from the toe up because I think right here you can see the ladders. This is the side of the sock. And you can see the ladders, and I started getting frustrated with the ladders. And it's the same on this the second sock. You can see the ridge. So pulling the first or second stitch tight for me didn't work. I still enjoy these socks, and I still wear them. As you can see, they're really warm. But that didn't work, and I was so disappointed with that ridge. Another example are my opal socks, and I've done these again a couple years ago. I can't remember how long, and they have a ladder. So I guess, I don't know what it is with me and ladders on the smaller gauge needles, hats and things like that. I don't get a ladder. They have bloomed out a little bit, so as much of the ladder that used to be is not there. I couldn't find the other sock, but there are two of these. But there is definitely, you can see right here, you can definitely see where I have a ladder. Here's another pair of socks that I've done. These you cannot see too much. I had a couple of episodes I talked about knitting woes. And one of my woes is I've been knitting for 8 years, and I've done a lot of knitting, but I feel like I don't have a lot to show. And I don't know if I don't think it's the quality of my product. Now, a lot of knitting, when I first started knitting, I did knit and give it away. But it just seemed like there was one thing happening after another with my knitting that just was not turning out right. These were one of my favorite and best accomplishments, and they were made out of Dream in Color Smushy. And both of the toes just blew out at the same time. They blew out in the wash. Maybe they should have been hand washed. I don't know. We had been machine washing them. We hadn't had them for a year. I made them for me, but they were too big, so I gave them to my husband. And he would want me to rewash them and wear them all the time. I loved them too so much that what we ended up doing was trading them. One time I would wash them and I would put them in his laundry, and the next time I would wash them, I would put them in my laundry. These have, if I remember correctly, it looks like just a 2x2 rib. So, you can't see the ladder as much because of the ribbing, but the laddering is there. So that's another example. I do have some Dream in Color Smushy left out of this, and I want to sit down and maybe try to, I don't know what I can do. Pick up stitches and do an afterthought heel, someone said. I don't know what I can do. I don't want to get rid of these, but it was a source of heartache for me. So anyway, if you have any suggestions about laddering and how I can prevent laddering in my knitting and maybe what it is that I'm doing wrong, I had in mind to kind of show you how I knit. I know I've been going really long, and this just means I need to podcast more because I probably won't get to everything that I wanted to show you. But when I take the stitch, I would go, you can't see, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'll have to figure out if I can show you how I'm knitting, and maybe you can give me some tips on what I'm doing wrong. So I think that is all of the things that I have on the needles. Nope, I think I have one more. Just wait. Okay, I'm back. Had to run away again. Thought I was prepared. I am doing the swirl hat. It's a baby hat. I've done it before. It's very fun and quick knit. And I have not done much on it. I got inspired, cast it on, and this is as far as I've gotten, which is the ribbing. I am doing it out of Madeline Tosh sock. I can't remember the name of the colorway. I used it in another project that I had on Ravelry. And I am doing it for my son's girlfriend's baby. So, this is going to be the swirl hat, and I'm not sure. The baby is about a month old, and so I'm not sure. Her mama doesn't put her in hats too often. I've gotten her a few store-bought hats, and her mom really doesn't put her in hats too often. So, I'm not sure how pressing it is for me to get it done. But I do want to get it done, but my top priority is the sew me yarn right now because that's obligation deadline knitting. So that, I believe, is all that is in my hands. Let's talk about what's out of my hand. Okay, out of my hands. I have quite a few finished objects from the past month. I did get all of the dishcloths done, so I got 22 total that I gave away. So I probably completed about 19. I think the girls did at least one each. They were a big hit. The co-workers, which are the other teachers that I teach with at school, really, really liked them. And Clyde, my husband's co-workers, really, really liked them. So they were a big hit. They were fun to knit. And after I was done, I needed a break. But now it's been about a month because I didn't think to start them until the end of November. And so I was crunching again, and maybe I work best under pressure. I don't know. But now, while I was knitting them, I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll do one a week. And so I have a pile up for next year, December, Christmas time. I haven't done any yet, but I am thinking I'm ready to start again. Again, after Sew Me Yarn is done, that, it gives me a little bit of more time to do other things. I knit on Sew Me Yarn any time I can. When I was doing the sleeves, it was really portable, but even now, even if I have a few minutes, I try to work on it. But when I need a smaller portable project, see, I still have my socks. And I'll talk about more about what I want to do later, but I want to fit the dishcloths in. So I'll try to do that. So that was one thing that I gave away. And then I gave them away in sets of 2, matching sets. I also finished what I'm wearing, which is the Koigu wristers. They are knit out of Knit Picks Gloss in the Dusk colorway. I had one done for you last time, and I think I finished the other one, 2 days after I podcasted. They do have the unsightly ladders that I was talking about that I hoped would disappear with blocking, and they didn't. I'm a little disappointed with this, the yarn. I believe it is a wool silk blend, but it is kind of fuzzy and pilling. And I like smooth yarn. I don't like, when I first started knitting, I really thought that Lamb's Pride was just the Cadillac of yarn. I loved how it felt. It was I just really, if you coupled Lamb's Pride with adding needles, I just was in my mode. But I've come to realize as I've knit more over the years that I don't like the fuzzy yarn, which Lamb's Pride is a wool mohair blend. And so I like yarn that is smooth enough to show a beautiful definition. And if you know of any yarns, that are more like that, that are kind of smooth, and just kind of let me know in the thread under this episode. But anyway, they're pilling. They don't look as bad on the camera as they do in person, but they're kind of pilling. They seem a little loose too, and I think the reason why is because I don't know what I was thinking, not being very smart. I soaked them and I blocked them on my sock blockers. Well, my hands are smaller than my feet and my legs, and so I probably shouldn't have blocked them on the sock blocker. So I'm thinking about soaking them and blocking them again, either blocking them on my hands or just soaking them and kind of just patting them and laying them flat to dry. So, but they are, here they are. They are a win for me because I call them I need a win mitts after my woes of knitting. But then when I get to the ladders, I'm saying, woe is me. Can I ever just get a knitting object that I'm really, really happy with? I'm not sure why, the ribbing seems a little stretched out. And again, that could be the way that I blocked it. Speaking of ribbing being stretched out, one thing that I forgot to talk about on my Sew Me Yarn is that you were supposed to do the ribbing on 2 needles smaller than the body. Well, after I did the 4 inches of body ribbing and I started on the body, I realized that I did the ribbing with the size 7 needles instead of the size 5. Now, I did the sleeve ribbing with the smaller needles, but this ribbing, and I did not want to take out 4 inches of 192 stitches of 2x2 ribbing and redo it again. So, beauty of bottom up, I said I'll finish it, and if I don't like it, then I'll just rip back up and do it again. But I went ahead and just went with that. And, I'm not thinking it may not be a totally bad thing. We'll just have to see. I don't like ribbing that pulls in so tight. And so as long as it doesn't look stretched out, I might be okay with it. So that was one thing I wanted to share with you. Another thing that I want to share with you is I did my knit on my knit 2 purl 2. I did the knit 2 through the back loop, and I love the knit 2 through the back loop. And the reason why is because of another finished object. They're out of my hands. I want to tell you about. I did 2 of the Starving Musician hats by Laura Linneman, and it's a free pattern on Ravelry, and you knit it by holding or by using bulky weight yarn. I did 2 in the same yarn. I used my Brown Sheep Lamb's Pride worsted yarn, and I just held it double. The colorway was like a gray, a dusk gray. I did one for my son, who is 21, and one for my stepfather. Very quick knit, very easy knit. I think it's like a 3x3 rib, but it's the twisted rib where you knit through the back loop. Very simple, but it yields a very clever looking finished object. I really enjoyed knitting it. Maybe I usually don't like knitting with bulky yarn. I don't know what it was, but I totally love that. As a matter of fact, I want to knit one for my boys. I have kind of hesitated about knitting for my little boys because they lose a lot of things. I wanted to knit one for myself. I just wanted to knit tons of these. I just love the way they came out looking. And, yeah, so that's the Starving Musician. So I did 2 of those. And the other out of my hands is a very basic beanie. Now, like I said, I'm working on another newborn hat, and I started this newborn hat, and I think it's called Waiting for Baby on my project page. And it's just a beanie, newborn cap. I did it out of Burnett Jacquards in their blue bonnet colorway. And the baby that we were waiting for, I thought was a boy, but it ended up being a girl. So I have another little boy in mind for this. If you look on the hat, you see, I believe I did this magic loop, and I have a little bit of laddering there, but not as much as normal. This is a sport weight yarn. And I had planned on doing a sweater with it and giving it to the little boy, to the newborn young baby. He was born in the middle of December, but I haven't gotten around to doing that. So I have on my project pictures, I do have a little baby with this hat on. And, but she's a little girl. The thing about it is this is supposed to be a newborn hat, and you were supposed to cast on and rib for, I don't know if they told you how many rows or how many inches, and then you were supposed to knit until the hat was 5 inches and start the decreases. 5 or 5.5, whatever it was, I believe it's 5 or 5.5. I did that, but the hat is too long. I have it on the baby, and it sticks up like this. And I mean, it could have been about, I think the hat should have been 5 inches total almost for it to be a beanie, not knit for 5 inches before you start decreasing. So next time, that's what I'll do. So I'm really not in a rush. I kind of don't know. I'm not in a rush to give the newborn baby the hat because I don't think it fits well on a newborn's head. But when it is time, when he is big enough to get into it, it's going to be summertime, and then he won't be able to wear it. So please excuse the noise in the background. My children are in the background playing. So that is another finished object that I have. And I think that is all of my finished objects. So we will go on to what my aspiration. Aspirations. I am aspiring to a lot of things. I feel like one of the things is as soon as I'm done with the Somiyar, I will continue working on my stripy socks, and I will go back to my calligraphy and work on that. I've been practicing a couple of things with my purling. I think purling over 200 plus stitches on a row was getting kind of just weary to me. So I'm a thrower. So I've been practicing on the Somiyar doing what I like to do when I knit continentally, which is the Norwegian purl. And I think it's pretty easy to execute, but it still seems like that I can throw quicker than I can do that. I did look at the backwards knitting YouTube on video, a YouTube video on backwards knitting, and that just didn't seem to be taking it for me too. So I think I'm going to go with what I'm familiar, stick with what I'm familiar with and what I know, and just take it as it comes. It's all knitting. Purling is, and when I do those other things and then I go back to my regular throwing, then I feel so comfortable, like, oh, I really like this. So I don't know. I think that's why I let the calligraphy kind of just start hibernating. I think it just seemed like once I got out of the increases, I just lost interest in it. I'm not sure why. And picking up all of the stitches for the button band seemed kind of daunting for me too. So anyway, I'm aspiring to finish the calligraphy. I also would like to do a pair of fiber trend clogs. And I don't know if I mentioned this in the last podcast. Now that I'm saying it, it sounds familiar. Fiber trend clogs are still under my aspirations. But if you're new, then you didn't hear it. When I first started knitting, I took a class at, it wasn't a yarn shop. It was actually a sewing machine shop. And it was where they sold, it wasn't a shop, but a big sewing machine center. And I took a class on the fiber trends clogs. I got a kind of a cheat sheet, worksheet that the teachers came up with where it kind of broke everything down with you. I think the class cost $25, but I felt like it was well worth it. For me, a new knitter, and I learned how to knit the clogs. I knit them one time. They're lost. And that was several years ago, so I would like to knit another pair. So that is something else that I'm aspiring to. I also have a little girl's dress that it's called Little Sister's Dress, and I wanted to show you a picture of it, but my internet seems to be running slow, so I can't bring it up on my iPod right now, and I'm not really sure why. So I'll have to share that with you another time. I went to a baby shower. The baby was born the last week of November, first week of December, and her shower was last week. And I got her a dress. I just brought her a store-bought dress and tights. And then I had in there an IOU, and I had a picture of two dresses that I would knit. She could choose one to knit that I would knit for her. And so I will show you next podcast the two dresses and the one that she chose. So we'll talk about that next time. I had that on my notes, but I can't get it to come up. Also, I want to talk about the Piper's Journey. If any of you follow my Ravelry page, you may have seen that I did start the Piper's Journey, and I called it Finally the Journey because this is a project I have been wanting to knit. I don't know, it's something about this project that I've been wanting to knit it for so long. So I finally cast it on. I had a little trouble at the beginning with what Paula was saying about the increases and things like that. But I got a rhythm going and I really got it going good. And I was really enjoying it and I love garter stitch and it was going great. I cast it on out of Cascade 220 and their sport weight. When I first started podcasting, I had It shows you all that I had purchased this from a not so local yarn shop to me. And come to think of it, I believe the grand opening was today. It was Unwind Yarn Shop, and it is in Richmond, Indiana, and they had closed for a while, and I believe they're opening starting today under new management. So I think I'll be making a trip to Richmond this weekend. It's about a half hour from me, so that's not bad. So anyway, I had purchased this. I have used Cascade yarns, 220 yarns in the past, I think, to make a sweater for my son or whatever. This is Superwash Sport, and it is in the, it just has a color number. I don't know what the colorway is. It's color number 845. So I was so excited, I wound it up because it came in skeins, and I cast it on, and I started knitting. And I don't know when it finally dawned on me that this Cascade is called 220 Superwash. Well, there's only 136 yards in here. I don't know if I'm the fool or whoever named it is the foolish one. I thought it was Cascade yarn. I've only bought Cascade worsted weight, and 220 was 220 yards. So I assumed this was 220 yards, so I thought I had 660 yards. The pattern calls for, oh, I had the math, 181 yards times 3. So that would be 543 yards. With 136 yards times 3, I only have 408 yards. There is no way. So I was very, 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 very disappointed. I went on Ravelry. I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking. I just thought I had to. I don't know. So I went on Ravelry, and I had sent a couple PMs to people who said they would destash it and didn't get a response. So I took it off the needles. I was loving this project so much that I wanted to get it done. I didn't want to shorten it, and I didn't want to run all the yarn. So I said, I'll just cast it on again in another yarn. I did end up finding someone who did destash 106 yards to me. But that brings me only to 514 yards, and the pattern calls for 543. I did go ahead and get that destash in the mail. I don't even remember. I've been looking all over for it to show it to you, and I don't know where it is now. But so before I went ahead and frog this, because I was going to go ahead and frog this for another project, I wanted to let you know I did start the Piper's Journey. So if you did see it on my Ravelry page and it disappeared, that is why. And I think I'm just going to go ahead. I've been wanting to do the Quince and Company yarns anyway. I don't know why. I just have not made the order for it. I don't buy a lot of yarn. I use a lot of my stash yarn, and I think that's what it is. I really don't buy a lot of yarn, and so I haven't made any huge yarn purchases, but I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. I also want to use a Quince and Company yarn for the little girl's dress that I'm doing, and it's in a fingering weight yarn, but we'll talk about that on the next podcast. So I think that's all that I have for aspirations, and we will go to our next segment, which is our contest. Before we do our contest, which I meant to do at the beginning, I want to talk a little bit. I forgot about goodie bag, and I have several things. First, one of the things in my goodie bag is I've purchased several needles, several higher sharp fixed sharp needles in the 32 or the 40-inch length. And I purchased those from Yarn Grove. And I think I told you before that I had given all of my interchangeable knit picks to the girls, and I just kept my fixed needles, which were a few chow goos and a few Addie laces and the higher sharps. I know a lot of people are really into the interchangeables, and I hear a lot of people are really loving the higher sharps kit and the chow goo lace interchangeables. For me, I never interchange during my knitting. If I had a set of interchangeables, like with the sweater, and I had to knit on 5s and then go up to a 7, I would just knit on 5s and then not change the needle, but, bring another whole set with the cord and all into it. I'm not sure why I'm like that. For me, changing off needles, it does not work for me. And there's just something about interchangeables that I just prefer fixed. And that's just, I've worked with the nieces, which, and then I've done the interchangeables I've had are the Denises and the options and the harmonies. And I just don't want to do interchangeables. I just would rather stick with the fix. So I've been slowly but surely ordering, and I appreciate ordering from the Yarn Grove. She is very sweet to work with and very quick in processing and no problems. So I've been refilling my stash, because after I gave the girls all of my needles, then I had to borrow them back for different projects. For instance, that Wavico cowl, I think I only had for the larger needles were the Knit Picks needles. I didn't mention on the swirl hat, I forgot to say that I'm doing that on Addie Lace 2.50 millimeter needles. And I hardly ever use that. That seems like an odd millimeter to use now, but I believe it's considered a US 2 and 2.5 millimeters. And those are some of the first needles. I'm sorry, they're not Addie Lace. They're just the plain Addie Turbos. And they are some of the first needles that I ever purchased. And these are the needles that I purchased for socks, and that I knit my first pair of socks on. So even though they're not lace, I went ahead and kept them just for old time's sake. But I really am not a fan of the Addie Turbos because their needles are too blunt from me. But then again, I digress. So I've been buying knitting needles, and I didn't think that was anything really exciting that I need to show you. Also, I don't have it with me here because I left it at work yesterday, but Miss Claire from Ravelry sent me a beautiful shawl, and so hopefully I will be able to share that with you on the next podcast. And thank you so much, Claire. It just came at a time that would really bless me. Also, what I'm wearing is the Leeless, I think it's called the Leeless cardigan. And it is made by, or the pattern is by Hillary Smith Callis. And I believe it's a $5 pattern, and it's a Ravelry download. Juliana, again, this podcast should be called All Things Juliana. Juliana from the Equal Opportunity Crafter podcast has spoken on her podcast about how she had knit this cardigan last year and it was too big for her. It just didn't fit her right. And so she said the first person that contacted her could get the cardigan. I contacted her. I was the second person. So she sent it to the first person and it didn't fit them, and they shared it with me. So I have it. It's knit in Knit Picks Wota, which is what I'm using now. It's just, a plain stockinette. The part of the cardigan that really makes the cardigan is I have it closed with a shawl pin here, but the big collar is what makes the cardigan. So it is a little big, I think, in the back, and I'm not sure if it's just because I'm not wearing it right or whatever, but I really like it. I've gotten a lot of compliments on it, and yes, I do tell them that no, I did not knit this. One thing Jasmine from the Knit Girl said, she said, I think her daughter was wearing something that someone else had knitted for her, and somebody said, did you knit that? And she said, no, but I could. So I almost said that, but I didn't. But maybe I did say that when someone asked me. But anyway, I have been enjoying wearing this. Um, and I thank you very much, Juliana, for this cardigan. Her knitting is beautiful. The stitch definition on this Wota is beautiful. It's just beautiful. I love hand knits. I hardly have any hand knits to wear, as I talked about earlier, of my own. So I told my husband, I said, I just love it so much. I just want to sleep with it. And it's the same with Claire's shawl. I mean, I've hardly put it down since she sent it to me. And so I just have it everywhere I go. And, I was devastated that I left it at work, but it's a 40-minute drive there and I can't get it right now. So that is what's in my goodie bag. Let's see. Another thing that I got that made me smile is I got the sea turtle. Sea turtle dude. I think that's what he's called. And he was knit for me by Joni of the Joni Knits podcast. So sweet and thoughtful. So cute. I love it. I didn't know what he was at first. I thought he looked like a turtle, but I thought these looked like I thought a frog, and then I thought, well, these look like they would be in the water. And so I ended up looking it up on her pattern page. But I love it so much. Thank you, Joni. It made me smile. It's crocheted and just fun. Very, very fun. So thank you very much for that. I would also like to thank, I have been given several patterns as gifts, and I decided to just instead of, well, I was debating whether or not to show you each pattern, but now that my internet is slow, that won't work anyway. But I do want to thank Ronnie and MCG, Aunt T, Heather Gale, and B-Wing all have given me patterns as gifts. And I just appreciate the thought. And I thank you very much for that. And that was one of the things that I want to talk about in aspirations. I guess that could almost come up in the knitting circle too, is I plan to knit more of the patterns that were given to me first, because the ones who have given them to me for thoughtful reasons. They see them on my wish list and something that I've talked about. Palette PC, did I mentioned her on the last podcast, and just the thoughtfulness of it. I just feel like I want to kind of give that priority. So out of my aspirations, I will be knitting with the patterns I have been given. And at the time that I start knitting on it, taking a page out of Stockinette Zombie's book, I will then give credit to the one who gave me the gift. And that is kind of what the Wavico Cowl and MCG did give me that as a gift. So thank you very much. And that is all we have for the goodie bag. Okay, well, we are going to go to our contest. I was going to jump right over to Knitting Circle, and my son, who's been listening in the background, reminded me that I still didn't do the contest. So this was the December share contest, and I asked everyone to share their favorite knitting tool, and I really enjoyed reading everything that everyone said. If you get a chance, I will you can continue to add. I do not lock my contest threads because because I thought if someone comes in late and they want to add something to the conversation, you can. So you can continue to add or go over there and read and get some good inspiration. But I did write down all the names of everyone who posted in there, one entry per person, and they're in my teapot. And my son Silas will draw a name, and he drew Spinun Lady, SPINUNLADY. Can you see that? I don't know if you can see that, but yes. So please contact me, private message me, and you will receive a Ravelry download pattern of your choice of $7 or less. Thank you, everyone who participated and commented, and thank you. Yay! So I'm going to wrap it up. There is a couple of other things I wanted to talk to you about in my weight loss tip, but it's going to take more time than what I have. So I will we'll talk about that another time. I did want to share with you, those of you who have expressed concern for my cousin, that she has no sign of the tumor or the lung cancer. And she was supposed to be gone by the end of December, and she's still here. And she did a juice fast. She sought the Lord for healing first, and she did a juice fast. And I will talk a little bit more about that. I won't get into a lot of what she did, but thank you for your kind thoughts and prayers, and she is doing better. So thank you for that. I don't think I'm going to be able to knit on this because it's not enough light in here. This blue ink is very, very dark. It's almost black. I think is how it was described on Knitpic's website. So I need light to knit with it. So hold on, I'm going to change project. Okay, I'm back. I just picked up the sock. So what I want, well, I know it's kind of late. Here it is. We only have one more week of January, and everybody else has already talked about their knitting goals and things like that. But I kind of want to share a little bit about me. I was looking over my projects, and what I completed in 2012 was 2 scarves, 3 monsters, 1 pair of socks, and it wasn't even for me, 2 shawls, 4 hats, 1 vest, 1 sweater, 23 dishcloths, and 1 pair of fingerless mitts. A lot of small projects. I'm not really happy with the list. So for this year, my goal is to knit more for me and more larger projects. I would like to get at least 3 sweaters done this year for me. I'm almost done with 1. I am 30% or 40% done with the calligraphy. And so 3 should not be a lot for me to think that I can get done this year. So I would like to get at the least 3 sweaters done for me, and I would like to knit more socks for me. That is some of my goals, and I have lots of sweaters in my queue. I talked about cleaning out my queue before, and so sweaters and socks is probably going to be my theme, or what I'm going to be concentrating mostly on. I do have a couple shawls. I do want to do the only 2 shawls that I plan to do this year is the Piper's Journey and the Color Affection. Those are the only 2 shawls that I really, really want to do this year. Now, I may do more. I'm not saying I'm only going to do those, but right now, those are the only 2 that I really plan on doing. I would like to do another hitchhiker, but I kind of count that as a scarf. So I would like to do like a worsted weight hitchhiker, and Knitpic's chroma is what I have in mind. So But I also want to talk about my theme. If I would have a theme, it would be to grow. I want to grow as in a lot of different areas in my life. I will be 40 this year in August. I want to grow as a knitter. First of all, I've been knitting for 8 years. It was 8 years in September. And even though I have been knitting 8 years, I don't feel like my skills are that advanced. Um, just just doing this sweater, this bottom up sweater. I don't have a lot of experience doing the bottom up sweater. I've been knitting 8 years. I've never done waist shaping. And it's just been a lot for me. She said it was for an adventurous beginner, but having to do the pattern stitch at the same time, doing the waist shaping and at the same time shaping, just everything like that. Those are all things new for me, not bad things. I am growing in these things, and I want to grow in my knitting skills. I want to be able to knit more even looking stitches. I know we knit for relaxation or fun or whatever, but I would like my stitches to look nice. And so I want to improve on my knitting skills. I don't think that's a bad thing. I want to grow as a knitter. I want to be a better knitter. I don't want to have the ladders that I'm seeing. I want to have projects that I am satisfied with. Um, so I want to grow in that area. It's kind of like uh, just because someone is an adult does not mean that they're very mature. Age has nothing to do with maturity. And just because I've been knitting 8 years, there could be somebody that's been knitting 6 months that is a more seasoned knitter than I am. So, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, but I want to grow. I want to grow in my knitting. I want to pick better projects, better yarn, and I just want to spend my knitting time more wisely. I want to grow as a person. I want to grow in my compassion towards others. I want to grow in my integrity. I want to grow in my spiritual walk, my walk with the Lord. I want to, even though, I'm an adult and I'm a mother and I've grown children and little children and different things, there are things that I can learn from other people and there are things that I can grow in. And so, growing is my thing for this year. And I hope that, I'm not here just taking up space. But I hope that as I grow and as I mature in different areas in my life, my health and wellness is another area I want to grow in. So there's my knitting, and these are not in order because it would be spiritual life and my health and wellness and my knitting and just my relationships. I want to grow. I'm not trying to change other people, but I want to grow and mature and be the kind of person that you can come to, or that's it for now. I don't want to keep running on. So that's my theme, and that is so for our knitting circle. What I wanted to ask you to share with me is your goals, your knitting goals, or just your life goals. Let's just kind of talk about that for our knitting circle. I will open up a thread, and it will be probably January, February share. Because this is only 1 week in January, and I want to give people time to figure out that I did put up another podcast. And so just share some of instead of saying goals, because I don't really like to make resolutions or promises, as I will do that. Let's talk about the things that you are most proud of. And it could be just 2012 or whatever. And the things that you feel like you want to grow in. and that's our theme, or my theme. And so I would like to hear from others. How are you going to grow? What you want to grow in, and how are you going to do these things? And maybe I'll talk more as I grow and progress. It's definitely with my knitting. I will let you know how I'm growing, and in different areas of my life if you're interested in that. Just being more of aware of how I can make better decisions is one way that I can grow. So I have a lot more to talk about, but I will end it here. So thank you for bearing with me all of this time. As it's back here a little bit more, I think it looks a little more purple. The sock does. I did want to say at the end of this podcast, we are going to try to include, I'm going to see if Journey is able to edit in a video that my son, who is now 20, he must have been 18, yeah, he was 18 at the time, that he made in memory of Araya, our daughter, who passed away 2 years ago on January 14th. And in the video, you'll see lots of pictures of Araya and maybe some pictures of Araya with her siblings, but none with me. And that's one of my regrets. I don't like photographs, not for any reasons, just I don't like to be photographed. As I was thinking about this, I thought, I can't believe I'm sitting in front of a camera. Maybe that's why it's so hard for me to podcast. And I have been seriously considering doing an audio podcast just because, I don't know, me and cameras don't get along very well. So, but that is a regret. And Jasmine from the Knitmore Girls, she, on her personal blog, had expressed how she hadn't had a lot of pictures with her and her daughter. And when her daughter looks back on the blog, she wanted her to be able to see lots of pictures of them together. There's a long story behind that. Jasmine lost a friend, and so you can read about that on her blog. But I thought that too. That is a regret that I have. I don't have many pictures of Araya and I together. I don't know if I have any. I probably do, but they were not available on the laptop or on the desktop that my son made the video out of. So, but I wanted to share her with you. She was a delightful, delightful girl. And so, you can stick around for that at the end, or if not, I will see you next time. I will not make any promises. My hope is to podcast within the next week or two. And I'm trying to do a little more tweaking on my schedule, and hopefully I will be able to do that. So until next time, thank you for joining me, and take care.
I feel I should just slam it down on the table and walk away madly, 'cause my stitches don't count up and I